To just ask you to say something that you've told me about, that there was a confession. That was part of what
Yes.
found in the archives. Can
Yes.
you just say one word about that?
Yes, the confession, they had to say, Walter Lamar, there is an author that wrote a book, Legacy of Secrecy, a few years ago. He found the document. It was a document that the FBI put it with thousands of other documents, like a kind of in a way in the archive, you know, you had to really dig to find it. But then there is practically the confession of Carlos Marcello. They handed to be in prison moment, like a real mafia boss. He handed to be in prison for other things, for a scam, but he's able to die in his bed. He gets out of prison and died in 1993 with around his family in New Orleans. He dies in his bed like a real mafia boss will do. And in prison in the 80s, he's in the same cell with this FBI informant. There is a man that went to prison. It was the first time the FBI practically told me, you know, if you become our informant. And he ended up to be sharing the cell with Carlos Marcello. And, you know, they started to talk, and after a few months on the hand, he said to him, he says to him, yes, I did it, and I will have done it myself. Means with his own hands. This informant, in the report, the FBI report, you have written there that he always had been trustable. Means that all the information he'd been given in years, they were always found out, like, you know, with the right information. We don't know why this document, you know, when it appeared in the 80s, why was not given to Congress, to whoever could act on this. Instead, was dig with all the other documents, and luckily was found just 7 years ago. So we have also this. But I have to tell you, another author that wrote the biography of Carlos Marcello, this is in the 80s, in 89, John Davis. He was a writer. He was actually related to Jacqueline Kennedy. He wrote a book on Carlos Marcello, Kingfish, and he had the same thing. He knew, because you know, when you have if you know how the mafia think, you understand that this man, he was a duel, a family against another family for him. The Attorney General was an Attorney General. John Kennedy wasn't the president. For him was a family going after him in a mafia style. And in order to survive his family, he had to act.
So, the floor is open for questions, and I know who you are, but just to introduce yourself once you have Matteo's mic.
Hi.
Okay, we'll have Evelyn and then Carmen.
Evelyn Leopold. I watched Frontline last night. Did you watch that too? Stefano?
Yeah, not all, and I will explain why. I was teaching until late, right when
Because
it was.
I
will watch it again.
They did do a big section on Marcello.
Yeah.
What had confused me and still puzzles me, and both in your exposition, and maybe you explained it more carefully before I came in, and in the Frontline piece, is what went on in Oswald's head. Why Kennedy, you know? I mean, pro-Cuban, anti-Cuban, it doesn't figure either way. Did he just want to be famous and do something to...
I can give you my opinion on that. I believe, this is what I believe, and it's only an opinion. We cannot know. But if the way was what he was passing through, I think this man had a problem. It will look strange to tell you, but he will have the problem with money. He was losing his family because he couldn't support his family. His wife, the Russian wife, Marina, she had practically had left him. The reason was not because she didn't love him, but because he couldn't support her and her 2 children. She was living with somebody else at the time. He had tried many different jobs. At one point, he left Fort Worth and Dallas, and he goes back to New Orleans in the summer of '63. He goes back to New Orleans because, like he said to his wife, he said, I have to find the means for, you know, to support you. I have to find a job. And that's when the thing, I believe, that's what happened. They were looking for the patsy, and the patsy needed at the same time a job that could really pay, because he was not paid. This guy was bouncing from a job to another looking for money. And Carlos Marcello had a lot of money.
Thank
All
you.
right, Karaman?
Thank you. Congratulations.
Just,
Kahraman Halis Çelik. I'm with TRT, Turkish Radio Television. When we look at that era, Edgar Hoover, 48 years on top of FBI, maybe 9 presidents, including JFK. What's the role that Hoover played in this, if he had any role? Did he, for example, was he part of the mafia you're describing?
Hoover is very important in the story. Thank you for the question. He's very important because the FBI office of New Orleans, for all those years, since Carlos Marcello became boss in 1947, up to all the 60s, and I would say also part of the 70s. Then after, when Hoover is gone, bam, things changes. Well, they send report to Washington saying that Carlos Marcello is a tomato salesman. The funny thing is that also the district attorney Garrison, the heroes of Oliver Stone movie, when he's interrogated by the Congress Commission, the Commission of Congress calls in 78 Garrison and asks a simple question. Listen, you are the only one that actually did the trial in New Orleans about the Kennedy assassination. We find so much stuff about this guy, Carlos Marcello. We actually think that this guy killed our president. How you were, they asked, why you actually did all this investigation and you never brought him? Why you never investigate him? And his answer was, I believe that Carlos Marcello is a tomato salesman. Now, to answer to the question is that we all know the story of Hoover being in a situation where the mafia and others could blackmail him for his, and you know the story about being a travestine. Okay? It was not the reason. I mean, it was not the main reason. He had a problem, but it wasn't that. It was gambling. And he was gambling with mafia, had in their hands all the racetrack gambling around the country. And he had that problem. And Hoover owned a lot of money to the mafia, and the mafia would just, clear the book, say, don't worry, you don't owe me anything. And for him, this is the bad interpretation. I can give you also a benign interpretation on the memory of Hoover. Hoover was thinking that the main problem of this country, contrary to Robert Kennedy that was thinking that was the mafia, he was thinking that were the Reds. He didn't want any destruction. He was thinking anything that will occupy the FBI out of looking for Reds was something not good for this country. So he didn't want to hear anything about the mafia.
All right,
If I
George,
just
and then Joe.
Pam, if I
Yes,
can just
Errol.
intervene here, you actually what was not so clear in the book, because you have to move to the other topic, how the death of the Marilyn Monroe, and there is the sexy topic mentioned actually within the book, how it was played, how it played really, whether it was part of trying to blackmail the Kennedys, and how Hoover was involved in that. What can you say about that?
About Marilyn Monroe, there is a part about women that is part of the blackmailing. It's only the blackmailing that is toward the Kennedys. It's not to do also with Cuba. But about the women, of course, also Marilyn Monroe, we have to understand this. Marilyn Monroe had an affair with the president before he became president and after he was president. And Marilyn Monroe was, I don't know if the right word, connected, but she was in the hand of the mafia, in the sense that she...
Other women also.
With other women, yes, the thing, but Marilyn Monroe, had a relationship with Frank Sinatra. Now, Frank Sinatra is we will say in Sicilian, I don't know if Frank Sinatra is pinciuto. You know what I mean, pinciuto? Pinciuto is when they put the blood, in your finger, then you had to do like that ceremony to become a real mafioso. Frank Sinatra probably was not a real mafioso, but he was in the circle of the mafia. And Marilyn Monroe and, I don't know, Rosselli, that he said was mafioso, was working in Los Angeles for the mafia in Hollywood and choosing who had to go up and down. And Marilyn Monroe, there are situations in early careers where she was pushed by the mafia, if you want. Now, the situation of blackmailing is this. If you have a person that, you see, the mafia, right away, to clear the floor here, I don't believe that Kennedy killed Marilyn Monroe. No, the president, no, Robert Kennedy, I don't believe it. And I think I'm clear in the book. But what I believe is this. Knowing how the mafia think, the mafia doesn't need the truth to blackmail you. Means doesn't need to know the truth. What it needs to find is a possible truth, something that can be suspected, something that they find a way to make a big scandal, if you want, even if it's not truth. And when Marilyn Monroe dies in circumstances that I believe she was killed, we have to find out by whom. What if it's actually the mafia that kills her? What if they kill her because maybe Robert Kennedy was in California the night before? And Robert Kennedy has seen, and there are recording of Robert Kennedy in the house of Marilyn Monroe in California. Somebody say he had an affair after the brother, also him. I don't know if he had an affair. I'm not going to go with this probably if he was, maybe he was to help his brother to get rid, not in the sense of killing her, but get rid of calming her because she wanted to go public about the affair because John Kennedy wanted. But if the mafia knows this, if the mafia want to blackmail you, here what happened. Then you have the circumstance of Marilyn Monroe dies in a certain way, and do you want in 1963 or 64 the news coming out that when Marilyn Monroe dies, Robert Kennedy was in her house trying to convince her to not go public?
All right, we have quite a few questions. George, and then Sherwin, and then Joe. We're going this way. Okay.
Hi.
It's just the mic's movement, yes.
Hi, George Baumgarten. Stefano, you mentioned historically that the mafia, or at least the North American mafia, was founded in New Orleans. Wouldn't that have had to be, way reasonably back into the 19th century? And second, do I understand correctly that you believe they did this, they had the president killed because of the racketeering and mafia investigations from the late 50s? It wasn't just 59, it was at least back into 58. And do I understand correctly, you say Marcello died as recently as 1993?
Yes.
Okay, and this is all in the book, I take it?
Yes. Yes, but the mafia was appeared in New Orleans in 1860s. There is no coincidence. Italy becomes a country in 1860.
Sicilia became part of.
Okay,
Italy.
Garibaldi lands. 61. He's the so-called. How you want to call it? Il plebiscito that tells you we want to be part of it. But Garibaldi arrives. Garibaldi conquest of Sicily is in 1860. Now, in 1860 is no coincidence. Starts the immigration of Sicilian around the world, and
Marcello was born in Tunis.
yeah, Marcello was born in Tunis by Sicilian immigrants, and I was not even sure 100% he was born in Tunis. Maybe there are suspected that he was born in Ravanusa in Sicily, but too long to say now. But just to answer your question is very important. The mafia arrived in New Orleans because practically it's not because where there are Sicilian there is a mafia. Huh? I'm Sicilian. I can tell you the mafia altogether they could be maybe. If they have 40,000 people, is a lot in an island of about 5 million. So you can figure out, okay? So 40,000 or 5 million people is not that the Sicilians are mafiosi. But where there is the money, there is the mafia. And when there is a rapport between money and politics, there is the mafia. New Orleans became the first port of United States of the New World for the Sicilian oranges, mandarins, lemons. They were being exported, and their port of entrance was New Orleans. And from there, from the Mississippi, we're going all through around.
Did this start during the Civil War?
Yes, before and during and after. And what happened is this was a very lucrative business. The Sicilian, so they were, the mafiosi were the people practically that were controlled the traffic of, not drugs, but of lemons and mandarins, and making a lot of Sicilian immigrants work in the docks of New Orleans. That's how it started, okay? But I want to make clear, guys, I mean, you're talking with a Sicilian here, don't make me angry, is the mafia is not even a so old phenomenon. Don't think it's 2,000 years old. The mafia and its relations with politics and its power